everyone. Am I audible? Is my voice audible to you all? Is my voice audible? Try to respond in the chat box.
Excuse me, Hamad sir. The time is 5:02 and please start the session.
వాళ్ళు మాట్లాడింది కూడా వినిపిస్తుంది. మనం
ఇప్పుడు
మాట్లాడింది
మాట్లాడండి రాజేష్ మేము అడుగుతాను.
హలో ఓకే రాజేష్ am I audible?
Yes, sir. It's audible right now.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Before going to start the session, I would like to know what are the concepts we covered in the yesterday session. Can anybody respond in the chat box? Based on that, we will proceed. What are the concepts we covered? We completed the selectors. No, not selectors. We discussed borders, positions. Yes, we discussed different kinds of positions, different kinds of borders. Similarly, we discussed box model. Yes, we discussed CSS selectors, that is pseudo selectors. So we discussed pseudo selectors and CSS positions, and we also discussed various kinds of borders available, and also discussed the box model. Cool. Now the next topic is the CSS units. Those are very important. So first of all, let me open the document which we already discussed. Is CSS training.
Excuse me, Hanuman sir.
Yes,
Please share your screen.
yes, sure. Thank you. I think it's visible now to you all. Is my screen visible to you all now?
Yes, sir. It's clear.
Yes. Thank you for responding. So still now we completed different kinds of concepts, kinds of CSS completed. Selectors topics is also completed, and pseudo selectors also completed. We discussed borders. And also discussed the positions. Now, from today onwards, we have to discuss the CSS units. So we have to know the CSS units. CSS units play an important role in the beautification of a web page. All right. We have two kinds of uh, relations. So those are absolute and relative units. So and relative units. So we have two kinds of units, absolute and relative units. Relative units means the unit measurement maybe depends upon some kind of other aspects or other elements. But absolute units are completely focused on the given length or given unit. So we have various kinds of units in absolute. The first one is centimeter, that is cm. The next one is millimeter. We can say this as mm. And the next one is inches. All right. And the next one is points. We can simply call it as pt.
Excuse me, sir.
And a few kinds of web browser supports pics.
Excuse me, sir. Would you please increase the font size?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So pt, that is points, and pc, that is pcas. Because this kind of units are used by few kinds of browsers, Chrome, Firefox, and Opera. Latest version of Windows, that is Edge. Edge is also supports this Picas, and the final one is Pixel. So this is the most relevantly used units in CSS. So we have centimeters, millimeters, inches, points, picas, and pixels. These are the different kinds of units, absolute units. So before going to discuss about centimeters and millimeters, so what is the difference between centimeter and millimeter? Can anyone respond in the chat box? Differences between millimeters and centimeters. What is the variation between them? What is the variation between the centimeter and millimeter? What is the difference? So yes, 1 centimeter equals to 10 millimeters. Absolutely. So we can say yes. So 1 centimeter equals to 10 millimeters. So 10 millimeters combined together, we can get 1 centimeter. All right. So that is very, very important. So here 1 centimeter is equals to 10 millimeters. So we can simply say that this is 1 millimeter equals to 1 by 10 centimeters. 1 by 10 centimeters. So do you have any idea about inches? Inches is nothing but nearly 2.54 centimeters. 2.54 centimeters. 1 inch equals to 2.54 centimeters. So similarly, points pt, that equals to 1 by 72 of inches. 1 by 72 of inches. We can simply say this as 2.54 cm by 72. Okay. And pcas, so simply we can say this one pcas, so we can simply say is 1 by 6, 1 by 6 inches. This is 1 by 6 inches. Simply we can say 6 pcas equals to 1 inch. 6 pcas equals to 1 inch. And the pixel is relative width. Pixel is also absolute unit, but we have to use most of the cases the pixel. So pixel, we can simply say this 1 by 96 of inch. This is most commonly used dimension or unit. So we have various kinds of absolute units: centimeter, millimeter, inches, points, pcas, and pixels. So we already know 1 centimeter, that equals to 10 millimeters. Simply we can say that 10 millimeters equals to 1 centimeter. So 1 by 10 centimeters, that is. And 1 inch equals to 2.54 centimeters. Similarly, pt, that is point, 1 by 72 inches. And next one is pc, that is 1 by 6 inches. So 6 pcas equals to 1 inch. And pixels, that is 1 by 96 inches. So it's better to recheck all the calculations here, because I'm not sure about this. So yeah, let me do the practical exposure. Based on that, we can search it in the Google, because the calculations, I'm not sure about these calculations, but we used this kind of calculations a few times. So once do the practice by using these units, absolute units, and we can check it out for the calculations in the Chrome or Google. So let me open the project folder. Open folder, and we have project. This is the new system. Yes. Now the project gets created. Now we have to use one folder, that is CSS, we already created yesterday. And similarly in project folder, we have to create a file, that is index.html. So project, and first of all let me create a file, that is index.html, right? And in that I'm going to create a new folder, that is CSS. In the CSS folder, I'm going to create a new file, that is style.css. Alright. So we created one folder and one file. Index.html is the root file, we already know about it. And one style.css. So Let me use the basic building blocks of HTML. It's HTML5. All right. Now I'm going to use a division and a paragraph tag. In that I'm going to use a paragraph tag. Cool. Now it's time to add the styler CSS to this index.html. So I'm going to use CSS here, and we have to use link rel equals to, as we discussed earlier, we have to specify style sheet. Link rel equals to style sheet, and we have to use href, and we have to use the folder name along with the file name, that is style.css. Cool. Now let me save this, and I would like to implement content in this paragraph tag. So that is sample content. That is sample content. So first of all, we have to start with the units like absolute, and we have to start with the inches. So I'm going to use paragraph tag. I'm going to manipulate the paragraph tag font size. So for font size, we have to use font size. Font size is a property. I'm going to use 1 inch. 1 in. No. First of all, starting with centimeters. 1 cm. Okay. So we just used a font size that is 1 cm. It's 1 centimeter. And save this and execute in the browser once. So few of you guys have responded that 1 inch equals to 2.54 centimeters. Yes, I used that also. 1 mm equals to 0. Yes, that is also fine. Cool. Now let me open this project. This is the folder, and from this we have to select the file. So I'm going to double click on it, and that is document, that is opening. So this is sample content. So we are able to find the difference. This is completely different from the normal font. So similarly, I'm going to use millimeter. When we are going to use millimeter, that is font size equals to 1 mm, that is smaller size than compared to centimeters. Now the size of the content is very small. The normal user is not able to see this content. So we zoomed this entire window up to 5 times of the normal window. Alright, so in most of the cases we need not to use any kind of millimeters, because millimeter provides us the least size of a specific font or any kind of other elements. So that is centimeters and millimeters, and next one is 2.54 cm, that is inches. So let me use 1 inch. 1 inch. So that is in. So let me save this and execute in the browser. Cool. Now we are able to understand. This content is very large than comparing to centimeters also. So we discussed centimeters, millimeters, and this is the third one. This is inches. Inches are nothing but 2.54 centimeters. 1 inch equals to 2.54 centimeters. So we already know all these measurements. We studied in our mathematical syllabus, the school days. So 1 inch equals to 2.54 centimeters. All right. So the next one is points. So that is 1 by 72 inches. So let me use the points. That is 1 pt. 1 pt. So it's time to refresh the page. Yes, this is very small. Comparing to millimeter also, this is very small. So I zoomed it up to 5 times of the normal screen. Even we are not able to see that. So that is points. So most of the cases we need not to use this kind of measurements. So most of the cases we have to use pixels only. Let me use PC, that is pcas, and save this execute in the browser. Yes, this is normal font. We can get the content as it is. The final one is pixels. So I'm going to use 1px. So this is very small. Now we are not able to understand this. But when we are going to use the measurements, most of the cases we have to prefer the pixels only. So let me use 16px. This is the normal size of a font general. Cool. Now we are able to see this sample content. So these are the different kinds of measurements. Those are we discussed absolute units. So we discussed absolute units. So we have various kinds of subunits in that, starting with centimeters, millimeters, inches, points, picas, and pixels. As we discussed earlier, 1 centimeter equals to 10 millimeters. So we can simply say that 1 millimeter equals to 0.1 centimeter. Similarly, we discussed inches. Inches are nothing but 2.54 centimeters. And also PTs, that is points, that is 1 by 72 inches. Yes. And the picas is 1 by 6 inches. We can simply say that 1 picas equals to 1 inch. No, 6 picas equals to 1 inch. When we are combine 6 picas together, then it forms 1 inch. Similarly, pixel 1 px. So that is very similar to 1 by 96 inches. Most of the cases we have to use pixel zone. In absolute units, we have to use this pixel zone. Clear? Now, relative units. So we can apply the units directly to a specific element. Those kind of units are called the absolute unit. When we are depends upon a specific element at the specific aspect, then we can say that that kind of units are relative units. So we have various kinds of relative units are available in CSS. So let me look into that. So first one is, and this is the very important, the percentile. Percentile. So this is very important. So in general, when we are looking to a document, web document, the entire body part is having 100%. So for example, I'm going to use the percentage instead of pixels. For example, 1%. The font size of the paragraph is 1%. Let me save this so we can understand. So the font size is 1% to the body part. Similarly, we have a division. The division is available in body part. So when we are going to use this division is one of the block level elements. So it occupies full width of the body. We can provide the restrictions by using width property. That is something like I'm going to use division along with the width. I'm going to use width 30%. Alright, so we are occupying 30% of width. How we are going to calculate this? This has happened based on the parent element of it. So this division is the child element and the body element is the parent here. The body is the parent element and division is the child element. So this division occupies 30% of the width of this body. It's better to mention the borders for better understanding. Border, that is 1px solid, and I'm going to use the color code for this. So we discussed various kinds of borders available in CSS the last session, and let me refresh this. Now we can see that so the division occupies 30% of the width. Similarly, if you want to increase the paragraph size so let me use 3% and save this and execute in the browser. Now the size gets increased little bit and I'm going to use 100%. If you observe this, here we are using division and this paragraph. This division is occupying 30% of the width of this body. This paragraph occupies 100% of width of this division because this is the parent element for this paragraph. So I am using 100% here. The font size is 100%. Let me save this and execute in the browser. Now we can get the syntax. Now we are able to see this one. Let me provide the width property for this. I am going to use again the border, that is 1px solid and has dd. So I am going to create another border for paragraph, and the color code for this is gray. And check this. Yes, we are able to see the border. So the box occupies full width of the parent element. The parent element is division here. The sample content occupies the full width of the parent element. Similarly, when we are going to use 30%, so we are using 30% of width for the paragraph. And save this. Yes, we used font size. So it's better to use width for this, for better understand. The width for this is 30%. And save this and execute in the browser. Now we are able to see the sample content. The paragraph tag occupies the 30% of width of the parent element. The parent element is division here. This is all about the percentage. How we are going to use percentage. The percentage is based on the parent element. So we applied 30% for the division. The normal width of the body is 100%. The division is the child element for the body. So when we are going to apply 30% width to the division, then it occupies 30% of width of the body. Similarly, we applied 30% of width to the paragraph. Then it occupies 30% of width of division. When we are going to use percentile, we have to calculate based on the body's width or the parent's width. Clear? So the next one is EM. EM. So we used EM. For example, we have various kinds of sizes. When we are not able to focus on the units, CSS units, by using HTML we can provide the difference. For H1 and H6, the differences are completely nearly 16px to something like 10px or 8px. The font size is completely different for H1 and H6. That is the element aspect. So when we are going to use H1 and H6, the widths are completely different. So this EM unit depends upon the general font size of a specific element. For example, here I am going to use paragraph and the font size is 1 EM. By default, the paragraph size is equals to the normal EM. So when we are going to execute, so we are able to see that here. So this is the normal font size. When we are going to use a paragraph directly, we can get same kind of width or same kind of font size. Similarly, I am going to use H1. H1 is very large than comparing to paragraph. I am going to use H1 and this is the heading 1. I am going to use heading 1. Alright, let me save this. So we have to use styles also. So same kind of properties I am going to use for the H1 also. For H1, I am going to use the font size as something like 1 EM, 1 EM. So when we are going to use two different elements, that is paragraph and H1, we applied same kind of measurements for the font size. The font size here is 1 EM and the font size for H1 is also 1 EM. So the same size, the two elements are having same kind of size. Let me save this and execute in the browser once. If you observe this, there is a few kind of difference between these two. The heading part is completely different. Here we can understand. So the EM is completely depends upon the width or the normal font size of the element. So let me use H6. H6 and the font size is 1 EM. I'm going to use 1 EM, so I'm going to use H6 also. H6 is heading 6. Right? Let me save this and execute in the browser. Now we can get same kind of output here. So each and every element is the EM is completely different upon depends upon the font size. So when we are going to use pixels instead of it, so I would like to remove this 1 EM for the H1 and save this and execute in the browser. If you observe this, here we are able to see the font size is completely different. So the EM is depends upon the normal font size. So here when we are going to use a font size, a normal font size, it completely depends upon the normal font size. So for example, here I am going to use H1 and same kind of measurements, font size equals to 1 EM. And similarly, I am going to use a sample content directly. When we are going to use font, the font size is completely different. So we can use 1 EM, so each and every element have same kind of font size. If you observe this, we applied the font size as 1 EM for the heading 1, heading 6 and paragraph also. We are able to see same kind of style, even we are not applying any kind of elements for this. So 1 EM is depends upon the normal font size. Similarly, I am going to use width as 30. So I am going to use 30 EMs. We save this and execute in the browser. Refresh. Now we are able to understand. So when we are going to apply the EM takes normal font size for the font, and when we are going to apply the EM for the specific layout, that occupies the fixed width of it. So this is the difference. This is completely based on the font size of the element. That is all about 1 EM. So most of the people are getting confused because in few kinds of websites it mentions 16 EM equals to 1 px or 12 EM equals to 1 px like that. But it based on the normal font size. When we are going to apply the font size as 1 EM or 2 EM, 1 EM is completely depends upon the normal font size of a document. So this is all about EM. And the next one is yes, the next one is EX. So it's related to the X height. This is completely depends upon the small case letter of X. So when we are going to use X, small case X letter, so the width, the size or the unit is completely based on the smaller case of X. So I'm going to use EX here. H6. Similarly for paragraph also. For paragraph also I'm going to use EX. Save this and execute. So we are able to see that is depends upon the smaller letter of X. So here we applied the font style or font size for paragraph and the H6. Now these two contents are getting very low because the size is completely depends upon the x normal x value. For example, I am going to use x here. So that is x here. That is normal small case letter x. I just used small case letter x here and save this. So if you observe this, this x and this s are having same kind of size. This capital S and this small x are having same size. So ex is nothing but we can apply size, we can apply a font size based on the lowercase letter x. That is ex. So similarly, we have another element that is ch. So ch is completely different. So it depends upon the normal integer, that is 0. Depends upon the normal integer height. So let me use 1ch and save this and execute in the browser. Now we are able to see. Let me use the 0 the sample text instead of x. 0. So the height of it is very similar to this s. So we can fix the unit sizes based upon the integer along with the x value also. For integer 0 we have to use char ch, and for lowercase letter x we have to use ex. Is that clear, everyone? Please explain once again about ex. Okay, sure. So I'm going to use ex here. Once again I'm going to use ex here, and similarly I'm going to use x. So when we are going to apply font size, we are able to see the width of the x. The width of the x is completely equals to the ex width. So here we are using ex. This is calculating the width of the lowercase letter x. How much width this x is having, that much of width is the s is also having here. But when we are going to implement this kind of scenarios in specific division or a paragraph, the width or the font size of a specific element is completely depends upon the root element, that is division here. At the paragraph, we applied paragraph a fixed width. So when we are going to use ex, the width of the specific character is completely equals to the normal character. So we have to calculate the width only. Similarly, when we are going to use ch, that is for calculating the integer height, that is 0. So we need to calculate the zero's height. Similarly, so we have a reminder. So that is related to the body element. For example, here I would like to remove all the stuff, and I'm going to use h2. Within the h2 I'm going to use paragraph, and I would like to use a sample content here. So here we are using h2 element. Within the h2 element we are using paragraph. Let me use I just refreshed. Now it's okay. Now I would like to use one rem. One rem. Let me save this and execute in the browser. Now if you observe this, when we are going to use rem, the width of the specific element is completely depends upon the root element or the parent element of it. So here paragraph is the normal element, but the font size is completely depends upon the font size of heading 2. We know the normal second largest heading is having a little bit of different than comparing to all other fonts. Here we are using one REM. When we are going to use one REM, this takes the width of the font size of the specific element, that is H2. But we applied style to the paragraph tag. But when we are going to use one REM, it gets the size from the parent element. The parent element is H2 here. For example, I would like to use this paragraph outside of the H2. I would like to use this paragraph outside of the H2. Now let me save this and execute in the browser. Now this is very small because we used in the body section. The body has some kind of limitations. So that is the reason when we are looking into the body section, the paragraph text is very small. Even when we are going to use this font in the H2, I am going to use it in H2, that is sample content, and I am going to use H1 instead of H2. It gets the size from the first largest heading, that is H1, and refresh. Now we can understand the font size gets increased. So when we are going to use one REM, that completely depends upon the normal parent element of it. Similarly, we have two more kinds, that is VH and VW. That is depends upon the viewport height and viewport width. VH and VW. So all the relative units getting confused. First of all, we have to use them properly. Don't worry, we will use them properly. And so we have to know what is viewport first, because we are using viewport height and viewport width. So what is the meaning of viewport? Before going to apply these styles, first of all I would like to ask you a question. What is the difference between the screen resolution and the screen width? What is the difference between the screen resolution and the screen width? Can anyone respond in the chat box? What is the difference between screen resolution and the screen width, are the physical dimensions of the screen? Respond in the chat box. Screen resolution is based on pixels. Okay. Now what about the physical width, or the physical dimensions of a screen? When we are going to buy, screen width is size of the screen. Then what about the screen resolution? Okay, let me explain this. So we have to know the differences between the resolution and the physical dimensions of. So if you want to buy a new phone, so it shows something like 1920 or 720 into 1920. 720 into 1920. So this is for example. Let's assume this. 720 is the width and 1920 is the height. So this is in the format of pixels. So we are able to see this kind of dimensions when we are going to buy a new phone. But the normal width and normal height of the device is completely different. So we can get very similar to the half part of this. So when we are going to calculate the width of the specific mobile or any other devices, so we can get similar to this one, that is something like 360 into, and something like uh, half part of the 1920. So that is nearly 960, all the stuff 960. Okay, this is the resolution. This is the resolution, and this is the normal position, normal size of the screen. So these are completely different. When we are going to buy a new smartphone, so we are able to understand these are the resolution. That means your mobile supports this much of resolution. But the normal dimensions of the mobile is 360 into 960. 360 means that is the width, and 960 is the height. So these are completely different. So when we are going to buy a new smartphone, we are able to see these calculations. That is not the physical width of it. That is, it supports up to these dimensions. For example, when we are watching a video from our mobile, we can zoom in up to this level. This called as zooming level of it. So when we are going to write a specific CSS code for it based on this responsiveness, based on the resolution only, we have to do zoom into a specific location. So we have to zoom it up to this dimensions. But this is completely different. This is the physical width and physical height of the device. So when we are going to implement any kind of CSS or any kind of dimensions, so we have to follow the responsive design. So we have to follow the screen resolution, not the physical dimensions of the specific device. So this viewport height is completely depends upon the device height. For example, if you are going to use a keypad mobile, then the height of the viewport is completely small. But when we are going to use the mobile device, that is something like smartphone, the height is completely different for that. Similarly for iPad and iPad Pro, all this stuff, the height is completely different. The viewport is completely changes from device to device. The viewport is very small in keypad mobiles, and it is moderate in iPad and iPad Pro. For the laptops and any other projectors, the viewport is completely different. That is bigger in size. Similarly for viewport width also. So when we are going to visit a viewport width, so that is completely depends upon the device width. In small scale devices such as the smartphones and the keypad mobiles are having smaller viewport width, whereas iPads are also having moderate viewport width. Similarly, desktops and projectors having high viewport width. The viewport is nothing but the screen resolution of a specific device. The viewport may varies based upon the device width or device height. So when we are going to use VH, for example, I'm going to use VH here. 1 VH. I'm going to use 1 VH for the paragraph. Save this. Now we can get a smaller size of the text. Similarly, I'm going to use 10 VHs. 10 VH. Refresh. Now we're able to see large text here. So I'm going to visit the same kind of text in different kinds of resolutions, such as mobile, tablet, and different kinds of devices. So for that, we have to choose the responsive principles from the console window. So what we have to do, we have to right click on the anywhere in your web page, and you have to click on inspect. The shortcut for this inspect is Control plus Shift plus I. We can use the same kind of link also, and click on this. Now from here we can able to see this is the dimension, this is the responsive icon. By clicking on this, we can check the responsiveness of a specific web application. Let me click on this. Now we are selecting 400 into 570, and I'm going to use iPad Pro. So in iPad Pro, we are able to see the text. The text is completely overlapped based upon the border. And similarly, surface, this is a little bit of small. So I'm going to use 320 width. So in the responsive, I'm going to use 320. 320, and we are using viewport height, right? So I'm going to use width like 360, 460. Now we can see the content gets collapsed, gets decreased, because we applied VH here. That is depends upon the viewport height. So similarly, I'm going to use different kinds of resolutions. I'm going to use 1024. This is the height property. The second one is the height property. So we have to manipulate this one. So 1024, this is the 50%. So we have to calculate for 100%. Now we're able to see the result here. Alright. Now if I'm going to use 200, that is 200. The height of the content VH is completely different. This is completely depends upon the viewport height. Whenever we are going to manipulate the viewport height, the content is also changed. This is completely depends upon the viewport height. Similarly, I'm going to use VW, that is viewport width. Save this and execute. Now we are able to see viewport width here. So how much width we used? 10 VW, right? So similarly, I'm going to change the width of it. That is 1024. So we can get the larger text. This is depends upon the viewport width. I'm going to use 320. And if you observe this, the size of the font get decreased. It depends upon the viewport. So I hope you might be understand what is the viewport and how we are going to use VH and VW. So when we are going to apply VH and VW, that's completely depends upon the resolution of a specific device. Cool. Now it's time to discuss the concept of flexboxes. Flexboxes plays an important role in CSS. That is the latest feature of CSS. We have to know each and every property of it. So for applying the flex properties, we have to maintain the child and parent relationship. So this is very, very important. So everyone need to focus on this, because this is very, very important. The flexbox concept is very, very important for designing the layouts. So here I am going to use a parent attribute, that is section, and the class here is parent. I'm going to use parent, and similarly I'm going to use articles, article. This is A. This is one article. I'm going to use the class for this. The class for this is child. So we use parent as well as we used child also. Copy and paste it. So the first one is A, that's fine, and the second one is B, and the third one is C. This is the third child, and the final one is D. So we used 4 childs in the parent. So when we are going to apply the flex properties, we have to make this parent as the flex parent. We can make this by using display property. So remember everyone, I am going to use the properties of the flex boxes. This is very, very important. I am going to use parent, and here we have to use display property. Display, and we have to use flex. Parent and display flex. Alright. So now it's time to apply the styles for the children. So we need not to do any kind of modifications by using flex boxes in the child. So we can apply the normal properties. So I'm going to use border, that is 1px, solid, and as DDD. Alright. Now I'm going to use margin also for each and every element. So that is 1%. The margin is 1%. And I'm going to use padding also. Padding, that is also 1%. So we used parent and child. So for making a parent as a flex parent, we have to use display flex property. Alright. So let me save this and execute in the browser. So we have 4 children. Yes, so Om Sai is asked me a doubt, that is how many pixels can fit in an inch. So we need not to apply based upon the inch. We have to apply the pixels based upon the screen resolution. Yes, we have to apply based upon the screen resolution. So for implementing the response design, most of the cases it's better to use the percentage instead of pixels. And similarly, what is the difference between class and ID? So definitely I will explain it. So we can use a class multiple times for a specific for different kinds of elements, but an ID is for uniqueness. So what is the use of display flex? Yes, that is also I'm telling now. By using display flex property, we can apply the flex properties. So what do you mean by the flex properties actually? So for making the efficient layouts, we have to follow the flex properties. So if you want to use the flex properties, we have to make the parent element as the flex. So that is the reason we used display flex property. By using this display flex property, we can make the parent as flex parent. By making the flex parent, we can apply the flex property to the children also. So for example, let me save this and execute in the browser. Here we are able to see 4 childs A, B, C, D. But when we are going to remove this display flex property, I just commit it and let me save this, execute. Now each and every division or article is occupying full width of the body or full width of the parent. So by applying the flex property, we can restrict the width of the specific element. So if you observe this, let me refresh. Now we are able to observe each and every child element is having a specific width. Those are not consuming the entire width of the parent. So this is the difference between the flex properties and the normal traditional layouts. Similarly, here all the children are displaying in the same line, that is in a row. So when we are going to apply the flex direction, so this is another property. I'm going to use flex direction here. So by using flex direction, we can make this as similar. So previously we didn't mention that is row. By default, the flex direction for the flex parent is row only. So we need not to mention the flex direction property again for the row. Let me save this and execute in the browser. Now we are able to see the same kind of output. There is no difference. Alright. Now I would like to use row reverse. Row reverse. So when we are going to use this, so we can get the information from the right side in the reverse order. So A is starting from the right side, and B is after A, and C is after B, D is after C. So we are able to observe all the child elements from the right side. This is the flux direction row reverse. So we can understand the difference between row and row reverse. So when we are going to use row reverse, we can get the elements from the right side in the reverse order. Similarly, we can apply the column also. So we discussed row and row reverse. So let me apply the column as the value for this row flux direction. And save this and refresh. Now we are able to see all the elements in the column direction. Column U. Column U. Alright. Now I would like to apply the column reverse here. When we are going to use column reverse, we can get that information in reverse order, like DCBA. So previously when we are going to apply column, we can able to understand the elements are displaying in ascending order such as A, B, C, D. But here we used column reverse. That is the reason we are able to understand the elements are in descending order. So this is the difference between row reverse, column and column reverse. Can we use VH in font size? Yes, we can use font size as VH. Remember, when we are going to use VH, the width, the height of the font is completely depends upon the viewport height based upon the screen resolution. Srivalli asked me this. Sir, what is the use of article? So I think Mr. John covered this topic. So article is one of the semantic element in HTML. So we need to use most of the cases for perfect layout. But we are going to use divisions. The division is not having a specific meaning of it. So instead of division, we can use the semantic element. So when a blind person visit a website, this is an error actually. So a normal blind person is not able to visit the website, right? So why we are preferring this? A blind person need to get information from a website. How he can? So he need to use some kind of screen recorders or screen readers. So yes, here instead of article we can use P. So P is for font only. So we need not to design the layouts by using paragraph tag. For yes, for customizing or designing any kind of layouts, we have to prefer the division. Implementing the accessibility, we have to use different kinds of semantic elements such as article, section, and all this stuff. So as a developer, most of the cases we have to use semantic elements only instead of, because when we are going to use divisions, the blind person or disabled person not able to understand. So that's the reason we have to prefer the semantic elements. So we will discuss about the accessibility and why the accessibility is so much of important nowadays. So and no article is a semantic element. What is the difference between div and display flex? Div is the HTML element and display flex is the CSS attribute or CSS property. So by making CSS property the flex, so we can apply some kind of flex properties. So we observed one of them, that is a flex direction. So we applied flex direction, row reverse, column reverse. So we can change the alignment of it by using flex concept. Blocks and paragraph stories are using article. Yes. So we have to use article because a article element is having a meaning in it. This is very similar to division. What is the division is doing? So same kind of functionality is also doing by this article, but there is a meaning for the article. When the blind person visit a web page, the screen reader simply identify this is an article. This is for reading purpose. And when we are going, yes, this is based upon the accessibility. How to fix resolution in all the device? Yes. I will explain it. Don't worry about it. I will explain it definitely. Okay. So here we discussed flex direction. Similarly, I'm going to use the width of it. Width is 30%. So before using this width property, I'd like to ask you a question. What is the height? Yes. What is the width of the section attribute here? So we section here. So what is the width of the section? Can anyone in the chat box? What is the width of the section? You have to mention that in percentile. What is the width of section? I'm asking what is the width of section here. Durga Vasu, yes, that is 100%. That is 100%. Durga Vasu is responded correctly. So section is having 100%. And yes, most of the people are responding here. Divya and Gandham, Nagasrija. Yes. Okay, 100%. So we know 100% of width. So, but what is the width of the child? That is 30%. So here, how many children are there? So we have 4 children. What is the total width of the children's? We applied 30%, 30% for each and every child, and we have 4 childs. What is the total width of all the children? 120. Yes, why we use important? This is also one of the question, one of the wonderful question. Chetan Dotre. So I will explain it tomorrow definitely. Just remind me tomorrow. I will explain practically how we are going to use important. Not important and important is also completely different. I will explain each one of them. So 120 percentage. So the total width of all the children are 120 percentage. But the parent attribute he is having 100 percentage of it. So for example, I would like to refresh the page. Let me save this and execute. I would like to use row because we are calculating the width. So that is row. Flux direction, that is row. Here. We save this and execute in the browser. Now we know the total width of the section is 100 percentage, but each and every children is having 30 percentage of width. But here we have 4 children. So 30 percentage, 30 percentage and 30 percentage for D is also is having 30 percentage. So the total width of the children is 120 percentage. It exceeds the parent element. The parent element is having 100 percentage of the width. So for avoiding this, if you observe this, all the elements are displaying in the same line. So this is not supposed to be do that. So we have to display the new the recent element, that is D, in the new line. So for example, flux direction, that is row, I'm going to use flux wrap property. Flux wrap, that is wrap. By using this property, when the width is fulfilled, the other element will be displayed in the new line. For example, let me refresh this. Now we can understand. We gave 30 percentage of the width. Okay, so we have 30 percentage of width for the each child. So we have 4 childs. So when we are going to calculate the width of the 4 childs, it's having 120 percentage. Similarly, A, B, C, D. So A, B, C, when we are going to calculate the width for the 3 childrens, we are able to get 90 percentage of the width. But why we are not able to see that D element in the new line? We are able to see the first 2 elements are the one line, and the next two children are in the second line. So this is happened because we are using some kind of margin and padding also. Here we used margin and padding. So when we are going to use margin and padding, we have to calculate the width based upon the left margin and right margin, left padding and right padding. So because we need to calculate the width, so we need to focus on the top and bottom. Instead of it, we can focus on we have to focus on the width. So we have to use the left and right properties. So here we applied margin 1 percentage. So it takes left and right, that is 2 percentage. Similarly for padding, it occupies the 1 percentage from the left and right side. So 2 percentage for margin and 2 percentage for the padding. So this is having 2 percentage. The first child is having 2 percentage. That is 32 percentage or 34 percentage. So when the normal width of the child is 30 percentage, but here we are using margin property that affects the width of the normal child element. So we have to calculate this margin also. So margin is having 1 percentage. So we have to calculate the margin for left and right. So that is 2 percentage. So similarly, the padding also having 2 percentage. So 2 plus 2, that is 4, and 4 plus 30, that is 34 percentage. So 34 plus 34 plus 34, it exceeds the parent width. That is the reason that 2 elements are displaying in the new line. So when we are going to this margin and padding, refresh this and execute in the browser. Now we are able to see the 3 elements in the same line and the recently added element in the new line. So this is all about the flux wrap property. So we can shorten these two by using flux flow property. The flux flow is the combination of flux direction and flux wrap. When we use flux flow, we can use row and wrap. So flux flow is the combination of flux direction and flux wrap. So I used flux direction as row and I used flux wrap as wrap. Let me save this we can get the same kind of result here. So now you can apply the margin property, margin 1%. Let me save this and execute in the browser. Now it's fine. But when we are going to apply the padding, that affects the width of the specific child. This is the difference. So still now, yes, till now we discussed flex direction, flex wrap, and display flex. Now I would like to use 20%, and I would like to use padding also. You can understand how the margin and padding affects to the width of the children. I'm going to use padding, that is 1%. All right. Let me save this and execute in the browser. So we can get all the elements here. So because we applied 20%, similarly I'm going to use 25%. Instead of 20, I'm going to use 25. So let me refresh this. Now we're able to see 3 elements in one line and 1 element is another line. So if you want to display all the elements in central element, we have another property, that is justify content. Let me use justify content here. Justify content, that is center. I'm just using center. So when we are going to apply this justify content center, we can get all the elements in central alignment. So refresh. Now we are able to see the center alignment for all the elements here. So it's better to use the border as #000 so that you can easily understand, because the gray color is completely reflects the background color. Now we are able to understand all the elements are displaying in central alignment. Similarly, if you want to display from the left side, we have to use flex start. We have to use flex start. If you observe this, all the elements are starting from left side. And very similar to that, when we are going to use flex end, all the elements are displaying from the right side. Flex end. We can get the gap from left side. This is about the flex end. And similarly, I would like to use space around. Specify content, that is space around. Space around. So by using this, we can get equal space around the element. So A is having equal space from the left and right side. B is having equal space from the left side and right side. C is also having equal space from the left side and right side. Similarly, D is also. Let me refresh this for visiting the output. Now we can understand from this. So A is having equal space from left and right. B is having equal space from left and right. Similarly, when we are going to use space between, I'm going to use between. So when we are going to use between, we can get space between the elements. Not from the left and right side, but we can get space between the elements. If you observe this, we are able to see the space between the elements. We are able to understand the space between A and B, and we are able to observe the space between B and C. This is the difference between space around and space between. So in justify content, we have few kinds of properties, a few kinds of values. For the flex, we used the first property, that is flex. Display. And the next one is flex direction. And the next one is flex wrap. And we used the combination of both, that is flex flow. Similarly, we discussed justify content. So we discussed flex start, flex end, center, space around, and space between. Alright. Similarly, we discussed the flex direction. So we have various kinds of directions in it. Those are row reverse, column, and column reverse. So these are the flex properties. Similarly, we have another property that is, so when we are going to apply this justify content, we can get alignment in horizontal manner in the same line. So I'm going to use align items. When we are going to use align items, we can align the elements in vertical order. So that is align items. First one is flex start here. So we have to align the items in vertical direction. So that is flex start. First one is flex start. So when we are going to use this, we can get the elements from the starting of this. So we have to observe from vertically. So and similarly, let me apply flex end. Save this and execute. So the first of all, we have to change the height of it, the parent height. I would like to change the height of it. So height, that is 500 px. I'm going to use 500 px as the height for this. Let me refresh this. Now we are able to see the items are displaying in the bottom section. You have to observe this in the vertical direction. All right. So similarly, when we are going to center and refresh, now we are able to see center alignment here. In center, we are able to observe the children. So from the top section we have some kind of space, and from the bottom section also we have space between the children. So this is how we are going to use the align items. And similarly, one more element, that is align items stretch. I'm going to use stretch. So when we are going to use stretch, the each and every element is occupying full width or full height of the parent element. Here parent element is section, so we applied 500 px. So each and every element is occupying the full width of the pair, like this. So this is all about stretch property. So we discussed align items. Align items is nothing but, so we have to align the items in vertical order. We have various kinds in it. The first one is flex start. This one is flex end, center, and stretch. So these are the concepts of flex boxes. I would like to share this document to you all. I hope you might be understand. At APSSDC.in. So if you have any kind of queries, you can send your query APSSDC.in. Sir, can you explain us by creating a new web page by using the styles in CSS? I mean, Yeah, definitely, definitely, sure. We will do the practical exposure on this. Don't worry about it. Yes, yes, you can ask the Rav Kumar also. Rav Kumar is also one of the multi-skill trainer from APSSDC. You can send the queries to this. And thank you, each one of you. And we'll meet you tomorrow. Yes, I shared the document. You can find the attachment from the chat box. And this is all about today's session, and we'll discuss from tomorrow. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.